And Frazier Friday is happening next week on the road, along with Frazier Wednesday and Thursday. You ready for Cincinnati? This team's got a little momentum. I mean,
they got a little mo.
They good. Yeah, they had a little rough start with the injuries, not the results, but the injuries. But it's a talented team. There it is. If you're watching right now, the schedule for us. You ready, Todd Father?
Talk to me. Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I'm ready to do this thing. We did it last year. It was a lot of fun. We got the Angels in town, so we're gonna have some good interviewees, and we'll get after in Cincy. Hopefully, it's warm over there. That'll make it just that much better for us.
Yeah, it's a good question. So right now in Cincinnati, like as we are doing this, it's 49 degrees.
Oh.
But next week looks like 70s high on Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, 50s. A little chilly for that one. And there's rain in the forecast for all 3 days, but I don't look at that. It's too far away.
You're not wearing jackets. You're wearing your FT hoodie.
Yes.
FT hoodie on the merch store. Come on,
I'll rock the hoodie. I'll rock the hoodie.
FoulTerritoryShop.com.
You going, Kratzy?
Nope.
Oh, man.
Wasn't invited. I never got invited to sign with the Reds. So I said one little thing about one little person in Cincinnati, and now all of a sudden they're like, beat it, nerd. No, I can't make it. We got games.
I got you.
Yeah. This is a Todd Father star trip. I'll be there. But you, me, and then I'm hoping Ellie swings by, Mr. Trout, and some others.
Okay.
So,
that'll be awesome.
Yeah. Ready to charge the mound and talk some ball first, and then we'll get to Ippei again. But let's start.
He's charging the mound.
Hottest team in baseball is?
Kansas City Royals.
Easy. 7 straight. They've won 7 straight. Huge weekend series about to begin, Kratz, between the Mets and the Royals. Royals beat the crap out of the Astros yesterday, 13-3, 9 runs, 11 hits off of Hunter Brown in the first inning, knocked him out with 2 outs. Bobby Witt, 4 for 5, 2 homers, 4 runs, 5 RBIs. Brady Singer was good. Their rotation's good. Mets have won 5 of 7 since their 0-5 start. Series of the weekend, Mets-Royals, right?
Let's pump the brakes. Like, they're not playing any good teams, okay? They played the Astros. Like, let's relax.
Wow, really?
That's just a Scotty Braun saying, this team, I mean, you come out against the Astros and you sweep these guys. I get it. They're not playing very well right now, but you know what they did? They limited that lineup to, I forget how many runs in the whole series total, which the lineup is what needs to carry this Astros team right now when they're still waiting. But 4-10 start might be the bigger story. What a pick right there, Marwin Gonzalez.
I was at third base when that happened. Oh my God.
You want to describe it?
I was like, I put my mask or my glove to my face. Brandon Phillips does some quirky things, and that was probably his most impressive. Tagging the guy in between his legs, ass to the face with a little smooch, like Bill Raftery would say, "Oh, with a little smooch," and
a little kiss.
A little kiss. And Marwin got the brunt of that ass sandwich right there. I call it.
He got pink eye after that one.
Oh my God!
Definitely got pink eye.
You did. Pink eye is just a 5-day IL.
Yeah.
All right.
Talking about brown noser.
Exactly. In all seriousness, KC's ERA right now is 1.97. Although, is that starting pitching or all? And they're second to Boston. I think that's starting pitching. Yeah. And Lugo and Waka, by the way, have been great. 1.76 ERA in their first 30 and change innings. So those were some nice signings. And I'm wondering, Kratz, which of the fast starters is real? Because there's usually one. But some of these teams that are still building back up fade. like the 28-8 Pirates last year. Pirates off to a nice start. Tigers off to a nice start. Royals off to a nice start. Let's just start there. Which one do you like?
I'm going to believe in the Tigers. I'm going to believe in the Tigers because of their pitching we've been waiting for their pitching to come around, and these guys are here now. Casey Mize is here now, healthy. That's all we can hope for. And that lineup is sneaky good. And I don't even think all those guys are hitting on all cylinders right now. I don't know that you're definitely not going to get 18, 19 Javi Baez, even like a 21 type of Javi Baez. But I really think the Tigers lineup out of all of those teams has the most upside because of guys like Riley Green, because of the way that Canna controls the zone, and it's kind of going over to some of those younger guys like Kerry Carpenter, Colt Keith. I might have to redo just the swings that he's taking, not necessarily that he's like lighting the league on fire right now. Just the swings he's taking for a young guy, I'm going to have to reconsider. He's putting together really good at-bats. Rookie of the Year candidate? I don't know.
And I'll piggyback that. Like you said, they're not necessarily putting up a lot of runs either. They're just finding ways to win games. So in the beginning, they were winning, but they weren't putting up many runs. So once this team actually fires on all cylinders, like you were saying, not everybody's tearing it up. I mean, this is a team not to be messed with. They have the squad. They have a team to do it. They've been building this over the last couple of years, and these guys want to win. And I think the Central's to be taken with. So the way Detroit's been playing, I'm not pumping the brakes. I'm going full force with these guys. I can't wait to see what they do as they move forward.
Yeah, the Twins don't look like the easy cruise control team in the AL Central with some of the injuries they've already taken. Their payroll chopping in the offseason because, I guess they didn't do well with ticket sales in the playoffs. I don't know. And that was sarcastic. And, they lost Sonny Gray, some other pitching. There's a lot of swing and miss in that lineup. They'll pick it up. They'll figure it out. They actually had similar problems last year, and their offense was much better in the second half of the season. But Tigers are going to be a pain. Royals are going to be a pain. White Sox are going to lose 110 games.
That's what I mean. Watch a Tigers game. And exactly what Todd said. They're not banging right now. They're not ripping the cover off the ball. To me, I think they have 3 30-plus homer guys in that lineup with Kerry Carpenter and Riley Green healthy all year and Torkelson. And you add in guys like Mark Canna, it helps. Whether Colt Keith was going to be, an on-base guy or not, to me, I just see at-bats together as a team that they're putting at bats together, and they're not getting the hits. They're not driving in a ton of runs yet. It just seems like a lineup that you're like, just never get an opportunity to just go 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. And I think sometimes with the teams like the Twins, sometimes teams like last year, the Royals, the Mariners, like teams that are struggling and they strike out a lot. It's like, where are we going to get some offense from? Because all we're looking for is one big bolt. And it just seems different with the Tigers.
My one thing, because I agree. I like the Tigers. I wish they did a little bit more in the offseason. I feel like they have buyer's regret. What?
They did some.
Some, I know. But, I mean, Mike Ilitch used to go all in, right? And now it looks like they're never going to be like that again. But can we meet in the middle? Because there were some bargains to be had. Another chip or two would have been nice. Because maybe this team can be a playoff team and the window opens earlier than anticipated. That's all. I mean, you're seeing it right now. You're like, okay, this team can bang. Would have liked just a little bit more. Tigers, I felt the same way about the Nats. I'm like, hey, let's get going. This is an off season where other teams are chilling. That might not happen again next off season. So it's a good thing. I'm saying it in a good way. Like, hey, maybe you guys can make the playoffs this year. So I want to spend, first off, I'll just sum up the Astros. It's early. Let's relax. JB's coming back soon. He's got the rehab start this weekend. I know it's a change at catcher, but the one they got now, Yainer Diaz, he can freaking swing the bat. Altuve, Bregman, Jordan, Kyle Tucker, they'll be fine. I'm not too concerned. It's if you've watched baseball in the last 10 years, MLB, you need to pump the brakes. they'll be fine. They're not the Marlins. They're not 1-11. Like they'll recover. They can easily rattle off 9 wins in a row. Anyone disagree?
No.
Before we go,
I don't disagree with the lineup, but I do disagree with some of the early first inning things. They had bases loaded, 1 out, and all the infield in. To me, I get it. You want to keep it at 3-0, but the wind's blowing out to right. You have a power pack lineup, and they had everybody in. To me, you have corners in on that play, and middle back ended up hitting a weak ground ball up the middle that would have been 2, would have gotten you out of that inning. But alas, they scored 9ers on them in the first inning. Anyway, that's my little. So let's
9 spot is something else.
Let's stay locked into the decision makers on that team too, because remember that was changed too. From Maldonado making decisions on the field to a new manager. Just saying.
Yep, it's true.
Very true. Very true.
All right, let's get to some juice. Some more details from the Shohei Otani interpreter scandal, former interpreter now, Ippei Mizuhara. So we were learning a lot live during the show yesterday, Todd Father, and we'll add a couple more tweets since we've been on. Here's Sam Blum. Ippei has agreed to surrender to federal authorities tomorrow. That is now today, according to a U.S. attorney spokesman. He's currently scheduled to have a bond hearing in the afternoon. He will not enter a plea, and an arrangement will likely be scheduled for a future date.
Excuse me.
You're good. And then Emma Baccellieri, our friend from SI, said, striking confirmation in the complaint of just how much Otani relied on Mizuhara for translation in all kinds of contexts. None of victim A, as in Otani's, agents, accountants, or financial advisors spoke Japanese. Agent 1, aka Otani's, agency does not employ any individuals who speak Japanese. That was surprising to me. I mean, Todd Father, this is the biggest, most marketing player in the sport. He's probably going to reevaluate what his team should look like, because it should be a large team, a trusted team, and a team that has people who can speak Japanese.
Yeah, don't you think when you sign somebody, and I'm not calling out any agency or anything, but if you sign somebody of that caliber and whatever language they speak, you want to get somebody that can at least help along the way when it comes to money, when it comes to endorsements, when it comes to appearances, that kind of stuff. So that's the tricky part for me. To see he's not entering a plea deal too, I'm like, oh man, then is there a little icing on that cake still per se? Is there still more stuff that he's going to come out with? There's a lot to dive into this. I know you guys got into it a lot. The numbers were just astronomical what he did when it comes to gambling sense. But Ippei, I mean, it's going to be an interesting next couple of days to see exactly what's going on and to see if all this is really true.
Top Father, how would you reassemble your staff? Like if you're Shohei Otani, right? You played ball and you obviously had some big moments. You made some good dough. You played with some dudes that made 9 figures, right?
Yeah.
And were very marketable. Did you observe anything? Did you do anything? Like, give me the kind of entourage that should be put together behind the scenes.
Well, I mean, first, he's signing that big deal. Hey, the contract was astronomical again. It was the biggest contract you'll ever have, Shohei Otani. Then, I mean, listen, as an agency, what do you get? 4, 5, 6% sum? I mean, you do the numbers. That's millions and millions of dollars for this agency. You got to put together everything. Maybe a cook, maybe an interpreter in the agency, that you can, give 60 to 80,000 a year, and they'd be happy with that, to help around, to make sure everything's right. Make sure somebody's, if he needs help, fly somebody out there, that kind of stuff. Some of these things, they just don't go over your head. You know what I mean? Like, these guys are smart. So you got to have an entourage of people to help out. And I think that's where, a lot of people are at fault during this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, financial advisors, accounting, all of that.
Yeah.
You should have resources galore and resources, that can speak the language if need be. I get it for Otani. He doesn't want to deal with this stuff. But just initially, you got to put the team together so that you got a trusted group that can deal with all of this. And it's not just, your interpreter taking on many other responsibilities that he shouldn't be in charge of regardless.
An interpreter was assigned.
Yeah.
That was assigned to him. Don't forget that. He didn't.
Yeah, he didn't pick it.
So
and the interpreter also had a sketchy resume that clearly was not picked. I'm not talking about the Dodgers. I'm talking about the Angels too. I mean,
now we
worked
know.
with them at
Now
the
we
Angels
know.
for years.
He duped people.
He got him.
There's a lot of fault for Shohei not taking care of his junk, as AJ was saying yesterday. But it's also like when you're bringing a player over, you have a responsibility to make sure the people around them are that they check out, because you're bringing somebody to a country that they don't know the language very well. They don't know how to get around. He took his money. He was a liar. They put somebody in his life that was a liar and a thief. And there's some responsibility there for the Angels because they put this connection. How much responsibility? I don't know. But if I'm Shohei, I have to start taking care of all this stuff myself.
Yeah, you got to reassemble the team. Let's bring in our first guest. We can ask him about this for sure. Longtime executive in baseball, Zack Scott, joining us right now. Excited to have him on. You can give him a good follow. He's very well spoken on Twitter at Zack Scott Sports. Has his own pod, his own company he's running. We'll get into that as well. Zack, good to see you, man. How you doing?
Hey guys, good to see you. Thanks for having me on. I'm enjoying all the Shohei and his taking care of his junk talk. That's
that was big yesterday. That was big on the show. So let's start there. From your perspective, what's your take on the story? And from an organization perspective, is there anything that could have been done differently to help a player that is coming over from another country? We all know anybody that's visited another country that doesn't know the culture, or you just get confused on anything. You're like in a cab, you're like, I don't know what to do. I get it. So what have you observed? I'm sure you obviously, oversaw transactions where players came over from overseas and you had to work on making sure that they were comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one for us at the Red Sox was Daisuke Matsuzaka back in 2007. So I think you hit it on the head with it's a vulnerable position for the player to be in, coming to a completely different culture, obviously not the language, just all these factors. So I think it's really important that the team gets the supporting cast right. And it's easy for me to say, the Angels didn't do a good job with that. But, it sounds like the story's pretty wild. And obviously there's a lot more that I'm sure we'll still learn. But, it sounds like it's hard to kind of see through a con man sometimes. And that's kind of what seems like was going on here. But yeah, it's really crucial. I can recall when we brought in Daisuke and at the same time Okajima, and getting the support staff right was important to Scott Boras, who was Daisuke's agent, and to the Red Sox, because this was new for us to have put an infrastructure in place for a Japanese player in the clubhouse. There are a lot of issues that come with that. You need to have the right interpreter, oftentimes they'll want their own massage therapist, and then you're dealing with issues of fairness within the clubhouse. Is this guy's getting special treatment, but at the same time, it's such a unique circumstance, it warrants that. So there's a lot of logistical things that go into it, but I remember how important it was that we found the right fit, because they're not only the right fit for that person who's in a vulnerable spot coming over to the States, but they have to fit into the clubhouse and that unique culture that is a major league clubhouse, as you guys know.
Do you think any of this has to do with the fact that you guys knew you were getting Dice Cream Matsusaka, and he was coming in, and I didn't Freudian slip there for our podcast. He loved ice cream, so Dice K was Dice Cream. But he was an established star. Do you think any of this, I hate to use the word laziness by the Angels, was because you were essentially getting Shohei Otani? Could he be unbelievable? Yes, it's amazing, but it's like, hey, you know what? We're paying this guy the minimum right now, and he's not, they're not paying it. We see him as Shohei Otani now, $700 million player. You have to have all your ducks in a row. You have to make this super big pitch to get him to sign with your team. Do you think some of that was part of the laziness, or do you think, no, we're going to treat every single the Padres are treating Yuki Matsui the same way they treated Shohei Otani, or Yamamoto the same way they treated Shohei Otani back in 2017 when they signed him?
Well, I think, first of all, Shohei, I mean, he had been on teams' radars for years, right? Because of the circumstances, sure, he didn't cost the team a lot in salary. It was very unique. But everyone knew everyone assumed he was going to be a star. Everyone was really excited about him. I remember talking about it, I felt like for like 4 years before he even came over. So I don't think that people weren't thinking about that. Yeah, sure, the money in a sense has something to do with it. If you're dealing with, again, going back to Dice Cream, you're dealing with, a big dollar, Scott Boras, part of the negotiation is putting that type of support staff into the contract. So there's a different level, I guess, of importance put on it at that moment. But no, I think anyone that was getting Shohei knew they had a star on their hands, knew that they had to, part of the benefit of bringing a player over, there's an adjustment period for a lot of players. There's adjustment periods for free agents in the States changing teams, if that's the only organization they've known. In this case, it's a much bigger cultural shift. It's in your interest as a team to set that person up for success, take away any possible distractions, just set them up to be focused on baseball so you can get them performing at their peak level as fast as possible.
I want to switch gears here a little bit. I love some of the tweets that you've been putting, excuse me, along as you, work your way through the social media a little bit. So for me, you put a tweet up and I quote, "The fastest way to kill a big market team is by locking up too many players to long-term contracts, mainly covering post-prime years. Luckily, someone bailed out my socks." So for me, my question to you is, does this have anything to do with like a Mike Trout contract? Is there anything like specific, or is there an example that you have when you make this type of tweet?
Well, I'll use the example of the Red Sox that I referenced there. When we signed Carl Crawford and Adrian Gonzalez to those big deals at that time in the market, I mean, those were huge deals. You're now locking up multiple roster spots to these big long-term deals. We also had sizable contracts with Josh Beckett and some other players. You're just limiting your flexibility. And the point I'm making there is it's really the fastest way to put yourself in a bind where you can't maneuver around a player disappointing on that contract. You need to have the financial flexibility to be able to address that. I mean, the good thing about being a big market club and having a large payroll is that you can get away with more mistakes on the free agent market. I mean, we again on a different scale had a similar thing with Pablo Sandoval and Hanley Ramirez. I mean, you need to be able to have either the young players that are in their first 6 years of control that are making less than they're producing or less than they would get if they were free agents, to kind of balance that risk that you're taking when you're kind of going all in on these free agents. But I think we've seen that, and I referenced some other teams, the Mets, everyone still talks about Bobby Bonilla contract still being on the books, but those Mets, and I think a really good example is the Phillies after they won the World Series in 2008. They basically wanted to keep the band together, right? So they just kept signing those guys well into their 30s and didn't have the farm system to recover from that when some of those guys inevitably declined. They just didn't have the maneuverability to pivot and still put out a really good team. And that's really the point that I'm making there, is that it can be challenging if you have too many contracts guaranteed on the books.
Now, my point coming off of this, I've always everybody talks about a big market and small market. All these teams, they have money. I never understood why, just they're a big market team because, well, maybe because they live in New York's a big city. I get it. But all these teams have the money to spend on these guys. Can we agree to that? Or, I mean, that's just something that's always bothered me by saying, oh, man, this team can't get this guy. They sure as hell can get the guy. They got money. These guys wouldn't be in this business if they couldn't.
Sure. I mean, it's hard. I've only worked full-time for 2 teams that were big market teams in Boston and New York. I have consulted with some smaller market clubs, and I definitely see a different mindset with some of those owners. Some of them, sometimes it's, they want to keep the team in the family. They want to have full ownership, so they don't do what some other owners do, which is kind of sell off some pieces, some minority stakes of the team in order to get more cash infused into the operation that they can invest in the product. So there's different ways they can do it. They have some ability to borrow against the franchise value. So yeah, there's ways to do it. I think we saw the Padres invest very heavily after being thrown into the small market category for so many years. Now we don't get to see the books of these clubs, right? They're private, so we don't get a look inside that. But some of these teams are probably a lot of these teams are operating at a loss that are in markets where they don't sell out all the time, depending on the TV deals. And now that's a whole other issue right now with what's been going on with the Diamond Group, that RSN situation. But I do think some teams do operate at a loss, but it's also another way to look at it is investing in the product. Using the Padres again as an example, they start spending a lot, and unfortunately, it hasn't turned into consistent results on the field, winning. I think they've only made 1 postseason appearance since investing a lot. But their attendance figures, I believe, have gone way up in the excitement level around the team, and I'm guessing viewership's gone up and all these other things that can increase revenues for them. So there is some level of what I find is sometimes some owners look at it too much as a cost rather than an investment. And that's not just limited to players. There's other things, that I do with my business where I see it as, okay, if we invest in this area of your baseball operation, it will pay off down the road. And, a big part of the challenge of getting that investment from your CFO or your ownership is for them to see the return on that, and to not think of it just as an expense or a cost. And I think sometimes some people think of that, their talent as that, which is kind of crazy because that is the product that they're selling, right? And they should be competitive, but you think that they got in this business. I've heard Steve Cohen say this: I'm not in this business to make money. I'm in this business to win and bring a championship to a city.
Is that refreshing to hear him say that? Is that refreshing to hear? And somebody who ultimately is in charge of the team, whether you think the GM or the president of baseball operations is in charge, the owner, if the owner wants to win, he's willing to do what it takes. And is that refreshing when you're working with, whether now or when you're with the Red Sox or Mets, to hear that?
Yeah, and like I said, I've always been in a fortunate spot where we were spending quite a bit of money on payroll. So, we get in this game because we're competitive and we want to win, and to have that support, it always feels good. That said, it comes with risk. There's all different kinds of risk. Not spending is a risk to an organization. Overspending, like I said before, can be a risk where if those guys don't perform and you haven't left that flexibility, you're in a tough spot and you can have several losing years because of that. So I definitely prefer to have that support for sure. And then it's up to the general manager and his or her staff to figure out how best to use those dollars so they can win now and in the future.
When you guys, meaning Steve Cohen and you, started taking over the Mets, there was a culture shift that needed to happen. How do you first go about doing that? Do you sit there and, because I read and listened to one thing you were talking about, how you were like, you can't just come in and start axing people and bringing in all your best buds, because that doesn't work out. How does that start? Is it a listening process? Is it I've met all these people throughout my career, I start bringing some in? What does that process start? Because you said there might have been PTSD from what had happened before with the Wilpons in ownership.
Yeah, I'd say it's, there's a lot of listening that has to happen first. In my case, to put some context in it, I didn't arrive at the Mets until very late December. I started there the day after Christmas of 2020. So I'd already gone through an off season with the Red Sox, almost an entire off season with the Red Sox. So I was focused on helping, them build a team for 2021. And then when I did get to the Mets, first it was an assistant GM role, and then about less than a month later, it was sliding into the acting GM role. So it was a unique set of circumstances with timing. So at that point, you have a lot of the free agents are kind of off the market. They had already, before I arrived, let go of several people in key leadership spots. So we had positions to fill. So there was a lot of new blood and a new culture opportunity kind of organically already set up to bring in some new people. But yeah, as far as everyone that was still there, to me, if you move too fast, there's a risk that you move on from some good people that were maybe just in a bad under bad circumstances. And so I wanted to really understand the people that were there, what they brought to the table, where they best would fit, where they could help the organization best long term to achieve the goals that we had, which is obviously to build a winner that competes for a championship as frequently as possible. So yeah, I mean, I did find, like I mentioned, there were a lot of people there that seemed to be on edge in what I called PTSD, where, almost like a lot of Mets fans seem to have on on social media, where it's just kind of expecting things to not go the way they want it. And, to break through that mentality take some time to get them to know me and other people that were new there, and to trust that we had the right intentions and the right vision for what we wanted the organization to be. But it takes time. It takes time to understand where your strengths and weaknesses are, and to build off of that, build off your strengths.
Hey,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Top Father. No, you're good. Go ahead, dude.
No, I want to talk about Pete Alonso a little bit while we're on the Mets. He's a guy that I feel like should be signed a long-term deal. This is a guy that's New York through and through, talking about the Mets. He's a guy that's done a lot for the city. He helps out a lot of people. And lo and behold, he's a really good hitter. He's a good power hitter too as well, and he's grown to become one of the best hitters in baseball. What is the consensus with that? What's been going on? Have there been any talks, or is it just something that we'll play it by ear and see how it goes at the end of this year?
Yeah, I don't have any insight into what their thinking is now with David Stearns in charge, and other people that have kind of changed, left the organization, or there's new people in the organization since I left. So I can't really speak to where they're at with that. But, the one issue that I think is a challenge that seems to be an industry challenge is, everyone wants to kind of look at the first base market rather than, and kind of almost treat it like arbitration at times, where it's like, well, how can we justify giving him this amount of money? Whether it's him, whether it's, my other former employer, the Red Sox, talking about Tristan Casas extension. I think that sometimes trips people up, is that they start getting a little bit laser focused on this positional market, and to say that, that's not where the huge deals are going. They're going to players that can make more of a defensive impact, whether that's shortstops or outfielders. And so, that's a real thing. I understand it, but at the same time, that's kind of a false construct, right? You don't want to limit yourself to just thinking of it that way. I think a team needs to think about it as how this individual player fits into, the way they plan on building a roster going forward. And so that doesn't mean you have to stick to this. Obviously, teams are trying to get the best deals that they can get. But yeah, Pete's a great player. He's an impact power guy. I love the guy. I think he's, and we definitely had some moments. He's an emotional guy, and I made some decisions he wasn't happy with at times, and he'd tell me about it, and I always appreciated that. Never shied away from that. And I love that. I love the passion he has for his teammates, for winning, for the city of New York. I think it's great. And so, those things have to be taken into account too when you're thinking about wrapping a guy up.
What decision did he not like that you made?
We fired the hitting coach. I fired Chili Davis, the hitting coach, in I think it was early May, and I think some guys took exception to it. It was actually kind of funny. It was after a game. I flew out to St. Louis. We were playing the Cardinals, and after the game, ended up meeting with Chili, and we fired Slater, the assistant hitting coach, at the same time, and I kind of botched the communication with the players. My plan was to have a team meeting right after I talked to those guys to let them go, to then say, hey, we let them go. I also had scheduled a meeting the next morning at the hotel in a ballroom there, just to kind of let them air any grievances. I just believe that you keep an open forum with your players and your staff. It's a traveling almost family. Everyone, as you guys know, you spend so much time together with everyone on the support staff and the players, that I felt like, hey, if I'm making this decision to remove one of those members, then I should give you a forum to air your grievances, ask questions, and try to understand. So I botched the beginning of that. I think he was particularly not happy that he found out on Twitter, which is never what I wanted to do. And he was right to be upset about that. But he kind of got up in my face in the clubhouse, and I just calmly said, hey, Pete, I'm happy to talk to you about this. I love that you care so much. I think that you're being a good teammate to someone that helped you. And let's talk about it. And we talked about it then, and then we talked about it the next day at that meeting, and other guys had a chance to voice either their disapproval or ask questions to get more clarity on my perspective that I might not say publicly, out of respect to the person that we moved on from, respect to Chili and Slate. And so, yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I have no problem with that. It's, I didn't think he was hot. He was emotional. It wasn't disrespectful. It was just in the moment. And I completely respect that.
You'd rather have the emotion than somebody who's like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Wait. Is that coming? Shh, don't say anything. That's trash. Yeah. But on here, one thing we do is we don't sit on either side of the fence. And you didn't answer Todd's question. Yes or no, are the Mets going to sign Pete back?
In my uninformed opinion.
Yep. That's it. Completely your uninformed opinion.
Just to be clear, I don't want anyone at the Mets to think that people there are talking to me about it, because they're not. I'm going to guess that they do sign him late in the offseason. I think he explores the market. It's not, he shoots a little too high. It's not what he wants. And that it comes down to a place that makes sense for them.
Well, and let me jump in there, because that's how you think about this, pretty much how free agency is going. Late in the offseason, guys signing late, not getting the deals they want. For me, I think it's crazy how we're going in this direction of top players, and some guys still not even signed. You think of a Tommy Pham. Like, why do you think this is happening? It just boggles my mind, because I remember when I went to free agency, I'm like, I couldn't wait. I'm like, this is my time, and I didn't get the deal I wanted either. So I'm not complaining. I just remember the time. It's like, shit, free agency used to be the fun part. It's not fun anymore.
Yeah, I think my theory on what happened is that, some agents kind of misread the market, misread the impact that this RSN issue is having on some teams. So the RSN uncertainty, now some of those deals got straightened out for 2024, but this uncertainty of where their TV dollars are coming from it's not just a baseball thing either. It affects half the baseball teams, half the NBA, half the NHL, and I work with clients across all sports, and I've had these conversations with people. Owners are scared or some of the owners at least are scared, because they don't know how this is going to affect them. They don't know how, all these people cutting the cord from cable, it's all these different streaming services. There's a fear that the dollars that they've gotten in the past aren't going to be there for them. And I think it's an unknown. I don't think it's necessarily what will end up happening. But anytime I've experienced a time of uncertainty, whether it was the economy in 08, 09 kind of tanking, or COVID in 2020, teams tend to err on the side of caution and be, really kind of tighten up, freeze budgets. In some cases in 2020, you saw a lot of people getting furloughed or let go. And then in both of those cases, things ended up being fine for them financially. And so then you'd see a large investment of dollars into the free agent market the next year or two after that. It's a cycle that tends to happen, where I've always argued, because I worked for teams with money, that actually that's an opportunity. And I think, you saw the Dodgers spend a lot of money while everyone else is kind of holding their dollars. They were doing the opposite, which is an opportunity. It's not like they were at the top of the market, so they didn't get huge bargains necessarily. But I think the Diamondbacks might be a better example, right? They're not a big market team. They are affected by this RSN, and they looked at it as, we got to the World Series. We have a good young core. Let's be aggressive in free agency and bring in some guys. And I think they did a great job. I love that they did that. But yeah, I think that's what was going on. In fact, I was looking at MLB Trade Rumors puts out their top 50 free agents before free agency every year. And pretty typically they get about 40% of those pretty close to on the money. And then there's like 30% that come in over, 30% that come in under in terms of total guaranteed dollars. This year I was looking at it, they got about only around 32% right. And only 12% came in over their predictions and 56% came in under. So the market was just completely different than what we're used to seeing. And I think some agents that, Scott Boras obviously had several of these clients that were out there late. And I think, Scott's strategy usually works really well. Kind of asking, I describe it as asking for the moon, and then usually getting probably a lot more than you would have if you didn't take that approach. But it can be a long wait sometimes for some guys, and we've seen that in the past. In this case, I think probably just overshot the mark by more than usual, because he didn't anticipate that some of these owners would just really, hold on to the cash.
So you mentioned the Diamondbacks, and I listened to you talk about how you think they've built a great culture there. I also saw what you said about Chris Young and how he created a different kind of culture in a short amount of time, being an ex-player and making those moves. I want you to grade in even shorter amount of time what Chris Getz has done, bringing the Royals over to Chicago, a beleaguered, unspending franchise that they are.
That's a tough one. I think, I know this isn't what you're looking for. I'm going to give you what sounds like a political answer, but it's the truth. It's so early to tell. I don't know. I don't know Chris that well. I have spoken to Chris before. I know Josh Barfield, who we brought over from the Diamondbacks. I've always heard great things about Josh. We have some mutual connections. Him, obviously, at Arizona, where I know a lot of the guys that run Arizona worked with me at the Red Sox in the past. And I've heard great things about him on the player development side. So I think that is an impact hire. I know Jin Wong, who came over from Kansas City, is more of the major league ops type of thing, player contracts and kind of roster rules and things like that. So I think that he's made some good hires. There's a long way to go for that franchise. So, just looking at it realistically, I'm not ready to say that they're, obviously the owner there has a track record of, how he spends, and maybe it not being up to par with being in the market, a big market like Chicago. I'd like to think, and I do think from some conversations I've had with some people there in the early goings, that there will be some investments made that are probably more long-term given where they're at. I don't think there's an expectation to compete right now. At least that's my read on it. So they need to think about, how do we get back to being or get to a place where we're competing every year? And I think there's a lot of work to be done. They were an organization that was just really insular for a long time and didn't have a lot of change, and they keep it fairly small and tight in terms of the size of their operation. And I think they need to think about some new ways of doing things. And Chris has said that publicly, that he wants to do that, even though he has been there for a while, but I'm sure he has different ideas, and now being in that seat has a chance to act on those things. And that's my sense. And he's brought in some people from the outside that will have different perspectives, which I think will help them. But yeah, to be fair, it's just so early, but they definitely have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, they do. They're looking at, I think, 110 losses this year, but we'll see what happens. Zach, great to have you on, man. Really appreciate the extended time. Give Zach a follow at Zack Scott Sports, And also, you can check out what he's doing at Four Ring Sports and the group that he's constructed there to consult with teams, and a new podcast, Deconstructing Champions, that came out a couple months ago. Give that a listen for more of this talk. So, Zach, we appreciate you. Would love to have you back, man. That was fun. Yes, Todd.
Thanks,
Father?
guys.
Hey, Zach, do you do 10-year-old travel ball teams too? Do you help execute that or no?
I don't think anyone wants me helping on the field. Let's put it that way.
Come on, I need you.
Let's put it this way. I was a really bad JV high school baseball player, so you don't want my help with anything on the field.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
you, Zach.
The time. All right,
thank you.
care.
This was great. Zack Scott joining us, 4-time World Series champ, 20-year sports exec. Worked as part of the Mets org, Red Sox, etc. Really good insight there.
I wanted to ask him.
Yeah,
I wanted to ask him. He helped with the Rangers. I wanted to ask him if they sent him a ring, would he wear it out? Because he's got 4 other rings when he was in the org. But I wanted to ask him that.
My bad.
No, you're good.
Ran out of time. We'll bring him back.
It happened.
So Corbin Burnes is going to join us in the next couple minutes, and scratch that, he's going to join us right now.
Meow.
Baltimore Orioles coming off a nice dub against the Red Sox. I watched most of that game yesterday. Corbin, great to have you on, man. So last time we spoke, it was like 12 hours after you got traded to the Orioles. How much is life different now versus that time period?
Things are good. Obviously, the first 2 weeks of a trade are pretty crazy, getting to know everyone, getting into camp, trying to meet all the new people. But it was good. Rest of camp ended up good. Off to a good start to the season, so can't complain. Got a good group, and we're winning baseball games.
How many guys, players, staff, working at the stadium, are you walking by going, oh, dang it, I do not know that guy's name, and it's too late into the season to ask him?
Players and staff, I'm pretty good on.
Pretty good or 100%?
No, definitely not 100%. I think I've got first names down, or at least the nicknames that they go by. But yeah, as far as like stadium staff, parking attendants, good luck.
Good luck.
And there's still time in my mind. No, guys, it's really early. There's still time, or
there's still time. No, there's still
to reintroduce yourself again. Like they all know who Corbin Burnes is.
I know, but I mean, how often have you been at Camden Yards yet?
Just 1 week. So we've had 2 series there. So we're back home. So
plenty of time.
7 days. 7 days plus the first 2 days that you're there. Look, once you reach that 9 to 10 day window, now all of a sudden Burnsies is a jerk because they all know who he is. They're like, oh, Corbin, they moved you up a start so that you could just keep pitching so good. You're the savior of this organization. And you're like, hey, what's up, Joey,
what's up,
Jim, Tom? Hey, guy. Hey, buddy.
Yep, that's the default. Hey, hey, how you doing? Yeah.
Hey. So if you work for the Orioles and Burnsy says, hey, how you doing? And never says your name, he doesn't know your name, introduce yourself to him because he is a superstar, and it's hard for superstars who get traded from the only organization that they ever knew as a baby to know everybody's name. So help my guy out.
Yes.
We're doing good. We're hanging in there. Like I said, I got most of the guys down. I know Adley behind the plate, and I know James behind the plate, so we're good. Let's roll.
That's all you really need to know. Just give him some dabs, say what's up, big dog, and let's go to work. I want to jump right into this, bro. Sunday's coming. It's coming quick. The excitement level, the nerves. You're facing your old team there. It's business as usual, or is this something that you circled once you got traded?
No, it's business as usual. That's kind of how I am. Whether it's opening day, whether it's a postseason start, for me, I try not to put anything more into any given start. So go about my process, prepare for it. Obviously, saw a lot of those guys play for multiple years, so they obviously know how I pitch. So it'll be a fun matchup. But just going about my 5-day plan as if I would if I'm making a start in July against the Yankees, the Red Sox, whoever it may be. So for me, it's just going out there, sticking to my process. Say hi to these guys today and tomorrow, and then when Sunday comes, it's time to strap it on and go win a baseball game.
As the kids say, I'm going to say cap. I'm going to say cap. I'm going to say you're lying because you go through your scouting reports. Are you sitting there going, I got to really delve into what these numbers say. I got to really delve into, no. I remember Yelly always swung at this, or I remember, wait a minute. No, he's thinking that I remember that. And he knows that I know, we all know. How is that dynamic in your brain going?
So it's funny because everyone always asks, like, how do you get this guy out? How do you get this guy out? And I'm like, well, for years I watched this guy swing at this in the dirt, like, but then you go start looking at scouting reports, you're kind of like, damn, he actually kind of hits that pretty well. So so you can start trying to nitpick, what you think, seeing, from the dugout and, seeing what they're talking about. But for me, I've got to trust, the knowledge that I have of picking apart scouting reports, looking at numbers, and just trust what I do. I pitch different than anyone else in the league that's, attacking these guys. So, with how my cutter plays and my curveball, changeup, slider, whatever it may be, righty versus lefty, I just got to go out and trust what I see and trust what the numbers are telling me and what I do best, and kind of put to the back of your mind, I guess, what you may have seen these guys done for the last 4 or 5 years. But you just got to trust your stuff. And for me, that's easy for me to stick to my process and my scouting reports and, watching video 3 or 4 days leading up to it. It's just kind of what I do. And, I'm excited to go out and have another start and hopefully get another win.
I'm going to ask one more question about this whole thing. You getting any text messages, guys talking smack, saying, hey, man, I've been waiting for this moment, or just, they haven't it's been like the calm before the storm right now?
No, I haven't talked to many of them.
All right.
Mostly just, they got into town early yesterday, so I got a text from a couple of the staff like, hey, we're here, and it was like 2:00 in the afternoon, and we're just getting to the field to play the Red Sox. I was like, damn, like, enjoy the full off day in Baltimore. But yeah, just mainly guys saying that, excited to see you. Look forward to seeing you at the yard today, but no SPAC talk, nothing like that.
Who are you most excited to face for any reason? Maybe someone you haven't faced on the Brew Crew, or somebody that you're super tight with that you're just like, yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I actually really haven't faced a lot of those guys over there. Some of the new guys that have just came in, obviously I faced Hoskins a couple times, Gary Sanchez, just, some of those guys that are new to that lineup. But as far as like in regular season, games, I've never faced Yelly, I've never faced Willie. The young guys that come up, obviously haven't faced them in game. So it'll be good to, it'll be fun to face those guys. Obviously you become friends with them, playing with them for so many years, but yeah, a lot of those guys you haven't faced. So it's fun and exciting facing guys for the first time.
Do you have any anticipation of what kind of reception? Because we saw what kind of reception Jackson Holliday got when he was in Boston on the road. Do you have any anticipation of what kind of reception he's going to get when he comes home now?
Yeah, I think it's going to be nuts. It seemed like we had 50% of the fans in Fenway cheering for him and welcoming him. So, I'm excited to see that, the turnout of the crowd tonight. Excited to see him get his first knock and get that crowd going. But yeah, the hype's there. Kid's a player. I told him to stay away from me. There's so many cameras falling around. I said, like, I don't need that much TV time. Like, I'll high five you down in the tunnel, but just stay away from me. I don't need all that camera. Like, there's 3 or 4 cameras falling around, and the Red Sox got the whole Netflix stuff going on. It was way too many cameras for my liking.
Yeah, you're definitely a face for radio. So if radio people start following around, then you can get it done. Do you guys ever, as a team, we had Grayson Rodriguez on here the other day, and he kind of hit on it a little bit. Do you guys, as a big league team, because everyone's talking about their minor league, their AAA team, do you guys ever just like look at the stats or look at the score on minorleaguebaseball.com and be like, holy crap, these dudes are smashing, because what they're doing is historic?
Yeah, so I think it seems like it's been on MLB Network and ESPN the last 4 or 5 days. We've been seeing it. Obviously, a lot of these guys in our clubhouse have played with a lot of Kerstad and Stauser, and a lot of these guys that have been down there, Holiday, Norby, Mayo. Obviously those guys were in camp, so they grew up with them. In the minor leagues, they lived with them, so they're talking to them all the time, and the numbers they're putting up down there is just absolutely stupid. Scoring 26, 27 runs a game behind the lineup that we have that can produce 10 runs on any given night is pretty special. And the depth that this organization have is kind of scary for years to come.
One more for you on Jackson Holiday. How do you deal with nerves when you're first coming up? Like, it's different, right? I mean, after a certain X amount of time, it's just going to feel like another day heading to the ballpark and all of that. But yeah, I watched most of his games, and even like defensively, like a ball's coming through and it feels just like a normal ground ball, but now it's not. It's at Fenway Park and everyone's looking at you. So, I could feel the nerves just from watching him. So I don't know. I mean, how do you observe that? Do you guys try and give tips on that? You just say, hey, you're going to feel it. And then in 2 weeks, you're going to be like, cool, we're at the ballpark. Let's go win.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of nerves coming from, all the hype, the prospect that he is to get to the big leagues and expect to perform. I haven't had that conversation yet. It's kind of been a whirlwind for him the last couple of days with all the stuff going on. But I imagine I'll sit down and have a conversation with him here in a few days, and it's just about the expectation, right? You have drafted 1-1, fly through the minor leagues, 20 years old, making your debut. There's just so much expectations that not necessarily the organization puts on you, but just all of baseball puts on you to come in and perform and be this guy and be a star for the minute you get up. So I think he's handled it great. He's gone about his business. He sticks to his routine, goes out there, plays his ass off. Wants to win just as much as anyone else in that dugout. So I think he's done a great job, and he'll continue to do a great job. But a kid that's probably never had any type of struggles in his career and in his life, and getting to the big leagues at 20 years old, it's going to be difficult, and he's going to have those struggles. So, I'm sure eventually in the next week or so, I'll have those conversations with him about, hey, just go out and keep playing your game. Keep your head down. Don't worry about what's going on outside. Don't worry about the outside noise. There's always going to be people trying to tear you down and pulling for you not to do good just because you're 1-1 and you flew through the minor league. So, just how this game is. It's unfortunate, but the kid is a great kid, great baseball player. He's going to play this game for a long, long time.
I could care less if he's 0 for 8 or 0 for 9 or makes an error or whatever it is. I want to know, how's his voice on the bus? Did he sing on the bus after the first road trip?
So we had a quick late bus last night, so he hasn't got on the mic yet. So this next roadie, he'll get on there. He lost to our bullpen catcher. We play a little game of you got to name the capitals of the states. If not, the bullpen catcher gets a little cash on the side. Just graduated high school. I mean, last week and failed that. He's definitely got some work to do, and we'll definitely hear his singing voice here soon.
Epic. All right, last one here. Moving over to your guy Josh Hader. So new to the party with Houston. My question that relates to what you're doing with Baltimore is, how much do you weigh being you and doing what has worked versus what a new team brings to the mix? That could be front office, coaching staff, catchers, etc. I ask it because I've watched Hader's outings and I'm like, damn, he's using the slider more. I look it up. He is. And I think when he gave up that big homer to Davis Schneider, he even was surprised because Schneider's like, yo, my kryptonite's up and in heaters. I thought I was fucked. And he didn't use it. He gave me a slider here and I smashed it over the wall. So I'm sure there could be some people behind the scenes like, hey, let's try that slider more. And Josh eventually is going to be like, yeah, I'm going to go back to like 75% heaters. So curious what your take is on that.
Yeah, it's always, coming to a new organization, they have different philosophies, right? And even an organization from Milwaukee to Baltimore who are, both very analytically driven, there's, subtle differences here and there. Josh went from Milwaukee to San Diego to now Houston, so he's gotten a bunch of it the last couple of years. But it's going by your process, knowing what you do. I've talked to him a little bit, and he went through the same thing I went through with adjusting. It's a new team and new faces and new coaches and relievers. I think it's almost more difficult because obviously it takes a little bit more of a workload to get that work with the catchers and the pitching staff or the pitching coaches. Sorry, and so those guys throw 5 or 6 times in spring training, so you're still kind of learning as you're getting into the season. But yeah, it's just kind of one of those things. An organization might be like, hey, your slider looks good, and you think it looks good, so you start throwing a little more, and it looks good initially, and then you kind of start to get away from what you do best. So he'll adjust. It's one of those things. He's one of the best closers in the game for a reason, and he's going to go out there and figure it out one way or another, and get back to being the Josh Hader that he is. But he's a guy I think any team in baseball would like to have at the back end of their bullpen. Regardless of what he's doing right now, just because of what he can do and what he's done in the past.
They all had a chance to have him at the back end of their bullpen. And so I'm going to end this. I'm going to end this with a little message from one of your good buddies directly to you. Okay, so hopefully we can run this, and I want you to listen and watch.
Yeah, Corbin Burnes he's looking forward to it.
Well, he dodged me this year, so that checks out. Spring training, I faced him once, and he was scared to come in. He's all talk. He got his hair cut. He's kind of like Thor. Just he lost all. He's scared around. He's just what it is.
Oh, he's fun. It's fun. We just played them last week. We're in Pittsburgh. And he asked me, he's like, I thought you were going to hit me. I said, dude, I tried. That was my first outing at camp. I did my absolute best to try to run a cutter in there, and I threw it at your ankles. Like the cankles, I was drawn to them, so I couldn't get it up and in. And then we had their home opener, right? It was like one of our 3 home openers that we had for teams this year. Goodness. He was standing next to McCutcheon, number 22, and he's number 44. And I was like, it's fitting, double the number. You were like twice as wide as Kutch. I was like, these whites do not look good on you. Like, you need to get back to some creams or some pinstripes or something. Like, the straight whites didn't look good. He's like, dude, I know. Like, I don't understand it. Like, what's going on? So he's funny. He's all rattled, but it was it was good to see him. He's off to a good start, so I'm happy for him.
Love that. Yeah, he's having a good time in Pittsburgh already, as you've seen, like making his presence known in multiple ways, as Rowdy always should. So. Corbin, good to see you, man. Yeah, you know how he is. Good to see you, man. Good luck this weekend. Have fun. We'll be watching, and we'll catch you in a few weeks.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Corbin Burnes, Baltimore Orioles. Orioles coming off a nice series against Boston. And just real quick, we were going to get to it before we talk to Corbin. Man, Boston's infield defense is rough. And without Story, it's real rough. I'm telling you, they're talking about it up there. There's a couple stats and notes that I was looking through before the show that I can find, but their defense, 13 unearned runs in 54 innings since Trevor Story went down.
You just can't play just anybody at shortstop. It is nothing against Hamilton. It is nothing against Rafaela when they put him out there from having played him in center field. Big league shortstops impact games in more ways than people understand. And I think they're kind of seeing it. And it's not just a shortstop position. And I think this is maybe, the Orioles wanted to solidify Jackson Holliday as a second baseman. It's half of your shortstop is your second baseman. There's outs to be had, and you saw it yesterday. Good feed from a second baseman. Shortstop wasn't able to get the job done. And next pitch, first row. 290 feet away, pesky pole homer. That's just that's the game. You can't give big league teams extra outs.
You're right. Yeah, top 5. That game was over. They didn't turn 2. Yeah, Kratz is talking about Santander.
Yep,
smacking a little pesky pole action, and it turns into a homer in only Fenway or Yankee Stadium. And they just pile it on in extras too, and that's where I think the Red Sox don't have the pitching depth. It's a little smoke and mirrors early on here. This is when a season plays out. What?
Great starting pitching.
Great starting. Good start. Not great. They've had great starting pitching so far.
They had a 1.74 ERA.
I understand, but we're 2 weeks into the season.
Oh, I
Get back
thought
to me
you
in
meant
August. Oh,
I thought you meant
yes, the results
so far. Yeah.
So far, starting pitching's been great. Really, I'm just saying in general, what we said in the offseason still will play out. There's not enough pitching there. That is going to play out that way.
Take the overs. Take the overs with the Red Sox. Take the overs when Raffy's back in the lineup. Just saying.
Good call. Good call.
And Corbin Burnes, by the way, is absolutely dealing so far this year. Just if ho-hum, if you wanted to know.
Corbin Burnes is the man.
Ho-hum.
Yeah.
Embracing the moment. Hot corner time. On that topic of free agency and all that, did you see what Reggie Jackson said about Blake Snell? Want me to read some quotes?
Yeah, read some quotes.
Please.
I saw it, but I didn't see it fully.
Mr. October.
Okay.
Let's hear it, Mr. October.
And he works for Houston.
Oh,
Still.
yeah. He's representing Houston when he says these things. So this isn't just Reggie Jackson popping off. Like, he represents Houston. Whether or not Houston says, hey, we're behind what Reggie says, will come out in the next few days. But go ahead. Quote.
That's why that's important. That was a good call, Kratz.
Yes.
I want to clarify. We don't just bring out any former player's quotes at any time for nothing, right? Like Goose Gossage likes to pop off, but he doesn't work for anyone. He's fucking around sometimes.
For a reason,
he means what he says, but exactly. This is someone who works with the team. So that's why there's a difference here. This was on our friends Joel Sherman and John Heyman's show, The Show. Reggie said he signed a 2-year deal, I want to say for $62 million. That's too much for him. He's been hurt a couple times, and I think there's incentives on top of that. He's also got an option on his own. And between the 4 or 5 people that make the decisions with the Astros, we don't play that game.
Hey, if Reggie was playing right now, he'd be asking for tons of money. So he would be upset if somebody said, "Hey, we don't play that game for him." So I don't know. Maybe it's the brass side of him because he's part of the brass now over there. I don't know. Maybe they got him on a question where he got a little excited about it. I'm sure there's other organizations and people that work within their systems that think the same way, but Reggie's just keeping it real. That's what his thought, I guess. So that's his opinion. But I think every player deserves every dollar they should get. I think Blake Snell was worth a lot more than that. So, and that's my opinion. So we, not to battle against them. It's just one of those things where agree to disagree.
Yeah. Also, initially it sounded like they were asking for the world when free agency first started. And yes, they overplayed their hand there. But that was when we were talking like 250 or whatever the number was back then. Now we're down to him signing essentially a 1-year deal. Sure, I guess technically 2 if things don't go well for him, but a pillow deal. And Reggie's saying that was too much?
That would be my question. What game don't you play? What game don't you play, especially now that, one of your better pitchers, it's recent memory, gave up 9 runs in the first inning. Like, what team does not – are they better without Blake Snell or with Blake Snell on a essentially 1-year deal?
Yeah.
Gosh, the Astros with Blake Snell? Especially now with the injuries they're dealing with?
With JV being out there, Hunter Brown's going to be fine. You have Framber Valdez. What Ronell has done, what Ronell Blanco has done, throwing a no-hitter, you had no idea. He probably wouldn't even have been in the rotation, so maybe that's great for him. But you'd start talking about a rotation in the playoffs because the Astros are a playoff team. Pump the brakes. It's 4-9. They're not going to be a 4-9 team all year. You would have Blake Snell, Justin Verlander, Lance McCullers, Framber Valdez. This is a good problem to have. To me, I thought they were, especially after they made the Hader move, I thought they'd be a team that was in on them. But they weren't, because I guess they don't play that game. I don't know what game he's talking about, but I'm pretty sure they could have used him on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, someone in the chat was like, how does he go from Yankees to working for the enemy? And I go, money.
Yeah, that's where I was confused.
He's complaining about spending money essentially on a 1-year contract for the Cy Young winner.
He's not
for
working
a team that
for
needs
free.
Starting pitching, and he's getting paid to work for that team.
I think, didn't they have some discrepancy with the Yankees, or maybe I'm way off on that? I thought there was a problem before he left.
No.
Why not go to the enemy then, right?
That's what he did.
I mean, no better way. No better way. He didn't go. It's not like he went to It's not like he went to Oakland, another team that he played for. He was like, "Hey, you guys don't like what I'm doing? I'm going to go work for the Astros." So, but there were some stuff kept in house.
For sure.
Yeah, spoken like a true exec, saying Blake Snell's making too much coming off a Cy Young win on a 1-year deal and pointing out his injuries.
We don't play that game.
You don't play that game. He's pitched a good amount. I don't think that's. I mean, I get it. You want to pick on him, getting out after 5 instead of 6 and change, whatever. But Blake Snell doesn't have an injury label more so than most pitchers. I would say his injury label's above average in terms of staying on the field versus most pitchers. Agree?
And 100%. It was, more of like the up and down worry, like Cy Young at its peak or, a 3.8 ERA guy at its lowest. It's like, well, I kind of like the 3.8 guy, especially if I'm getting him on a 1-year deal. There's no such thing as a bad 1-year deal. And I might be overstepping when I say this, but I feel like after this came out, I feel like the other 4 people, if he's including himself in the 5-person group that's making the decision, they may say something to him like, hey, even if they do agree with him, maybe we keep that in-house next time, okay, Reggie?
Yeah, they're going to have a little chit-chat with him about that,
maybe.
I would think.
And maybe I'm off. Maybe everybody's in the background. Maybe Crane and Bagwell and Biggio and whoever else is making those decisions are like, yeah, say it with your chest, Reggie. And Reggie's like, yeah. Mr. October.
Maybe they like that. Maybe they do.
This part I could see. This is part of a bigger strategy from ownership groups. When you have a player speaking out about another player and essentially saying that guys are overpaid, that is what they perceive as a win. It's the same reason why a lot of players work for the league after they played. They just want them to say things that align with what their thought process is. You're paying an influencer.
Yep. That is a good point. Like, you don't see me, you just see my face. MLB is good. When down here I'm just getting paycheck.
Albert Pujols.
Paycheck.
I love
MLB
Albert.
MLB is good. The machine likes MLB and baseballing. Thank you.
It's true. I love Albert. Great player, but the league's signing him to also speak for the league. That's how it works. It's a thing. So keep an eye on that. Always check who's saying what and who they work for. Exactly. And we can help with that. We're here for you. We don't work for anyone. We literally don't work for anyone but ourselves. That is a promise. One more for you on that topic, since no one else likes to cover this stuff, but then fans love hearing about it and learning about it. So there was a very extensive insider article put out there by Tim. I'm going to butcher the last name. We haven't had him on. We should at some point. Keown? How do you say that? Anyone know? Doesn't matter.
I think it's Keown.
I mean, it matters, but I don't. Keown?
Yeah.
Okay. It matters, but Tim, we'd love to have you on at some point. It was great. It was long, but it was worth the read. There's one part that many people pointed out that stood out about the Kings owner who helped to put this whole deal together with the A's moving to Sacramento, which has been a big story in the past week. And Tim Kawakami from The Athletic helped to point this out. He said, via this story, Vivek, that Kings owner, is definitely bright. One source who requested anonymity. I'm going to just anonymity.
Anonymity.
I'm struggling today. Friday. He made an assessment. Vegas will eventually fall apart, and wherever the team is at that moment is where it will stay. He's not the only one who believes that, end quote.
Wow.
Think about it. And it's not like he's just guessing. He's BFFs with John Fisher. Like in that article, it talks about them having bougie Cabo houses and, they hang out there. So I'm sure they do other business together. He's not just guessing. Like, you know what? There's a problem. I think they might like me. Or let's show off Sacramento, and the league hopefully will give us an expansion franchise. No. He's not stupid. First off, you see how John Fisher can't do most things correctly. And then if you're actually friends with him, you probably sat down with him at one point and said, hey, so you're not paying us for any of this to use anything. We know you love winning deals. That's all you care about. If the Vegas thing doesn't work out, what happens? Maybe we stay in Sacramento. Maybe I sell the team to you and it stays in Sacramento. I don't think that's a crazy conspiracy theory.
Not if
there's a method. Let me just go real quick and then you finish.
Yeah.
There's a method to everybody's madness. Growing up, as a young kid, you don't know any better. And then as you get older, you're like, why did he say this? Or why did somebody do this? Then you figure out as you get a little bit older and wiser, come to your sentence. Well, there's 4 or 5 different things why they said this. There's a method to somebody's madness. So this is not far from the truth. And Erik, I want you to finish off with that. That's all I really wanted to pinpoint and control, that there's a reason why they're going to Sacramento. That wasn't talked about before, but now it is. So why? Erik, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, especially since they needed to try to stay in the Oakland area to try to get the most out of their Sportsnet deal. And the biggest takeaway from this article, from this entire situation, is they are friends. And one thing we know about John Fisher is he might have a lot of enemies, but a lot of people love hanging out with this guy, from ownerships to other business owners and other MLB owners. Like, he's a fun guy, all this stuff. If his friend has any kind of inkling, he's not going to sit there and try to backstab him and be like, hey, man, I'd love for you to come over. And then in the background, he's like, hey, maybe if this doesn't work out, he'll hook me up. No. Like, if you believe that they didn't talk about the fact that this whole Vegas thing isn't really working out. Like, we had a great chance to advertise it during the Super Bowl. Vegas didn't help us. We're having a tough time with the renderings. There's not a lot of space. It's a 44th largest TV market in the United States. Maybe he's feeling a little shady about it, and this owner's coming in and going, I would love to own the A's or whatever the heck they're going to call them. So just be aware, like, they're friends. They're not just like business partners or business associates.
Nailed it. Exactly. So we'd like to point that out because that's what we're doing here. We have Ken Rosenthal waiting in the green room. He is going to join us in 30 seconds. BRB. Unified Healing is sponsoring this episode of Foul Territory. Unified Healing is an innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or EE System. This technology promotes wellness and deep relaxation, and there are hundreds of locations across the globe. Interested in experiencing the EE System technology for yourself? Go to unifydhealing.com/foul to learn more and find a center near you. That's UNIFYD healing.com/FOUL. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, including EE System. We are back with FT Senior Insider Ken Rosenthal. There he is. Yeah, Todd Father's excited to see you. Happy Friday to you, Ken. I do want to start right away with the latest on Ippei Mizuhara. So your show did a great job yesterday breaking down the situation at the moment. There have been some updates since then when the feds put out that long report. So first off, what was your reaction when you saw all of the details and the bets and more money being placed and stolen from Shohei than we initially heard?
Well, I've been hearing for weeks that it was a lot more than 4.5 million and couldn't nail it down. I'm sure other reporters were hearing the same. Then to hear the number yesterday, more than 16 million, that sort of matched what I was kind of gathering initially. So that aspect of it did not necessarily surprise me, even though it's a big number. And even though when that amount of money is taken from an individual, that's a shocking thing. As for the rest of it, I was surprised by the level of detail that the federal government presented in its case, its complaint against Ippei Mizuhara. And we'll never know perhaps the entire truth, right? But as I wrote today, this is probably as good as it's going to get if you're a Shohei Otani fan and you want to see him exonerated, if you're Shohei Otani and want to be exonerated. Yes, you can poke holes here and there, I guess. It's kind of hard to see them. I had some people comment on my article raising different things. I went to check the complaint, the 37-page complaint in each case, and wasn't coming up with what these people were saying. Imagine that, guys. So there are going to be people who always believe something was amiss here. And for all I know, who knows? Maybe something happened that was not outlined here. But based on what we know and based on who was doing the investigating, not Major League Baseball, which would leave them open to much skepticism because of Otani's value to the sport, but it's the federal government. It's 3 different agencies combining to compile all of this information on just what Ippei did. It seems to me to be the closest to an open and shut case as a non-legal expert that you can get. But we'll see how he pleads, and we'll see ultimately how this works out. Of course, the New York Times reported on Wednesday that Ippei was negotiating a plea deal of sorts, and that would likely lead to a lesser sentence. We heard the maximum sentence for this is 30 years. So for all the people saying, well, Ippei's just taking the fall for Shohei, if you're going to go to jail for a length of time, and it certainly seems like even if it's not 30 years, it will be a length of time, not 6 months, then that kind of theory kind of goes out the window.
You're going to think maybe I'm crazy, but like you saw the amount of money he took, right? You have all the details. I don't know the top dollar, whatever it was. It was really a lot of money. How does he get away with that? Like getting all that money out? It said he made 19,000 bets. Like any bank or any place is going to be like, wouldn't they be skeptical about the whole situation?
Well, Todd, it's a very fair question, and it's all addressed in the complaint. And what he did was, at times, impersonate Otani in conversations with bank officials. He had access to that account, that one particular account where Otani's baseball paychecks were being deposited. And he also told Otani's advisors, his professional advisors, his agent, his financial people, Shohei wants that account private. So, if Shohei is not getting the notifications, if Ippei is the one getting the notifications and handling things on his own, you can see how this can happen. And people might say, well, Otani's an idiot. Otani's naive. Otani's careless. All of that might be true. Wouldn't be the first individual to kind of be involved in such a thing. Wouldn't be the first sports superstar, as I pointed out in what I wrote today. This happens. And I'm not saying it's normal or anything like that, but John Elway had financial issues. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bobby Orr, the list goes on. And if you trust someone to the extent that Otani seemingly trusted Ippei, certainly this can happen. And it seems bizarre to the average person. It certainly seems bizarre to me. But at the same time, the way it was laid out by the government, with the evidence that they presented, that they said they have, it's kind of a situation where you start to understand just exactly what was happening here.
Ken, we covered this earlier on the show. Would love to get your take on this front too, because you speak to people around the game every day, and you know how it is with like water cooler talk. Like this is one of those topics that comes up when you're catching up with someone. I've had it the last couple of weeks too, where they're like, "You seeing this latest update on Ippei?" So my question is, learning from the experience, How do you think teams react to this? Do they say, hey, we need to do better background checks on employees that are closer to our players? Do we need to rethink how the interpreter process works? What can a team learn from this? I'm sure there are executives that are saying, hey, next time we have a situation where someone's coming over, we need to make sure they're in a good place. Like, everyone needs to kind of pick up the pieces here.
Scott, agreed. And I am certain and have talked to some people in the game about what they will do going forward. And yes, background checks. Yes, I would imagine the next time an interpreter is presented to a team, they're going to have more questions than maybe the Angels had initially about Ippei. Sam Blum of The Athletic has since written about how there are inaccuracies in Ippei's biography that probably should have been caught if you were doing a real background check, if you were serious about it. So I would expect there to be an effect here and an impact on the way teams conduct themselves in the future, and maybe even guidelines that MLB puts in place for interpreters in the future and how they are given their roles and all of those kinds of things.
I want you to overreact to the series that you're doing this weekend, okay? Where the current world champions and the previous year's world champions are now lining up, where they are so far in the season. I don't want you to say, not one time, it's early in the season, okay? I want you to overreact to where they're at and moving forward from there.
Eric, I like the question. I like the demand. It's not one I usually get, but from the Astros perspective, my concern is their bullpen in front of Abreu, Presley, and Hader. And that's something that they let go this offseason, and I don't believe took seriously enough just what they were losing with Maton and Neris and the others that left as well. They lost a lot of innings out of that bullpen. Ryan Stanek was another one. So that's a problem for them. Abreu, Jose Abreu, the way he's hitting, that's a potential problem too. Though they're getting men on base. They just aren't hitting with runners in scoring position. I would expect that to change. Their offense still, in my mind, is going to be pretty good. But the real problem is, right now, that they have 4 starting pitchers on the disabled list, or the injured list. It's Verlander, it's Fromber, Valdez, it's McCullers, and Garcia, who will be available later in the season, most likely. So that's causing them to reach down to a guy like Spencer Arrighetti, or top prospect, but he had a tough time in his debut. It's forcing them to ask more of Hunter Brown. And Hunter Brown has had a couple of rough starts. It's only his second season. So that's where they are. And I am concerned about the Astros. It's going to end at some point, this unbelievable run that they've had. So, yeah, there are some legitimate concerns. Now, the Rangers, they've got some guys missing too, right? Nathaniel Lowe at first, Josh Young at third. They've got some starting pitchers that they're waiting on. Lorenzen first will be back, then Scherzer, then DeGrom, hopefully, and Tyler Mahle actually right before DeGrom, if it all works out the way they intend. Once that process starts and once they get some of those guys back in the mix and once Young and Lowe are back, I would think they're going to stabilize. They're kind of in a rough spot right now because of the injuries that they've withstood, especially on the position side. The pitching stuff they knew was pretty much happening. They're going to be there, in my opinion. They're still one of the best teams in the American League, maybe the best team in the American League. But they're going to have to wait for their pitching to come back. And then, at that point, if you start to see Lorenzen and Scherzer, and then down the line, Mahle and DeGrom, then you can do what you did last year. Heaney and Dunning in the bullpen if you need to. Maybe even John Gray in the bullpen. You have options. You have ways to go. So I am less inclined to overreact to them than I would be the Astros. The Astros thing, I don't know. It just doesn't seem good right now. Maybe once the pitching gets back, everything settles down. I can certainly see that happening, but I'm a little more concerned with them.
One more for me on the Rangers. How does a team figure out getting another World Series title after winning last year? It hasn't happened in a really long time. I think the number one reason for it is pitching. And it even ties into the pitching injury chatter that has come into center stage, this week and last week with more of these top dogs going down. So I'm wondering if someone like Chris Young, who clearly values pitching, just keeps piling on, is already thinking about more pitchers that he wants to acquire at the deadline. Even if he ends up having too many starters, who cares? Those guys go to the bullpen and we say, hey, let's try and win another World Series. So stacking arms, in my mind, is a key there. What do you think about their pitching depth on that front?
Well, we'll see where they are come the deadline, Scott. But by that point, in theory, Lorenzen should be a part of the rotation or the bullpen, however you want to use him. Scherzer should be back. They're looking at early to mid-May for him right now. And at the deadline, if Malley and DeGrom aren't back by then, they will at least have a good feel on when they are returning. And could there be possibly a better deadline addition than a healthy Jacob DeGrom? I don't think so. So I don't know that they're going to need starting pitching this time because they have these pieces coming into play. But we'll see where we are in July. It's a long way away. I mean, it seems like we've played a lot already. There's been a lot happening in the sport, and it's April 12th. So I would express that, or I would suggest that we need to wait before we start looking what their needs might be. It might be starting pitching, Scott. They might have 3 more guys go down. I don't know. But certainly Chris Young has been aggressive, and I would expect he'd be aggressive again.
So we have Kratzy, sorry. Go ahead, Bo.
No. I understand that there is one of my fellow colleagues, AJ Przinsky, and you had a nice text exchange that you're willing to share with us coming up to your game.
Here it goes, Eric, because the other day I said that AJ tries to keep me off the air. He viciously and fervently and vehemently denied it. Here's proof. Conversation with our producer, Brian. Brian's a producer. Only thing I need is to make sure Ken never gets on the air. Thank you. Appreciate that. And I said, LOL, let's just hope AJ figures out who Ronel Blanco is by Saturday. He's pitching in our game. It's all in good fun. And by the way, because this is another frequent AJ complaint, I'm sitting in a hotel room. AJ is in the same hotel. He's not in some Super 8, and I'm not in some fancy place. We're in the same spot.
Wow.
Hey, Ken, you know what you need to do? You need to take your trash can, fill it up with water,
halfway,
lean it up against his door, and knock on his door and let it dump into his room. Do it.
Given the fact that AJ, I don't know, has got probably 80 or 100 pounds on me. Nah, maybe not that many. I don't know.
He'll never know it's you. He'll never know it's you.
Know. He'll figure it out.
Awesome. Hey, I want he puts that water on the door. Remember, the only way to make it stop, you have to open your door and quickly close it so it would pop back up. Unless you'd have a puddle of water on your floor.
Anyway. I can see AJ doing that to me. I have to be on guard here.
Yep. You wouldn't be able to get out of your room.
Just look under the door. Just look under the door before you go out, okay? And you'll be able to see the shadow.
Appreciate the advice, Eric. Thanks.
Yep.
The Jackson Holiday effect coming up, man. This guy has been always talked about.
Oh, wait, hold on. Todd, your mic just went crazy. Hold on, dude. We're going to reset you. Wait, give us one sec. I know what you're going to ask, but it happens, dude. Your mic went crazy. There you go. They muted you for a sec. Here, I can pass the baton for the last question here. Jackson Holiday effect. I mean, it's been a couple games. We just had Corbin Burnes on before you, and he told us how he'll talk to him eventually about nerves, but there's so many damn cameras in his face, especially in Boston because they do the documentary stuff up there. He's like, I'm just going to leave him for a few because I don't want all the cameras in my face. But what have you seen so far?
I see a kid who's just comfortable playing. Now, he hasn't had many results so far, but he certainly doesn't look overmatched. His plate discipline comes as advertised. He is going to be a good player. And while the results might not be there yet, I'm not worried about him. No one with the Orioles is worried about him. I don't know that anyone should be worried about him. What is so striking about that team right now is for all the hype that Jackson Holiday is getting, and rightly so, former number 1 pick in the country, in these 2 nights in Boston, they got a game-winning homer, or go-ahead homer, I should say, from Westberg, who was another former number 1 pick, 30th overall, and Colton Cowser had one of the great series in Orioles history at Fenway Park during their history at Fenway. 10 RBIs. You saw the 2 homers last night. He, too, was a number 1 pick, 5th overall. It is stunning to me, not just how many of these guys they've hit on. And I know they tanked, and I know that's how they got the high picks. I get it. We've talked about that, and justifiably so. But they hit on these picks. They developed them. In some cases, they weren't in the minors very long, understood. But it's really impressive. And the fact that they've got more coming, Heston Kierstad and Kobe Mayo, Kyle Stowers, all these guys, it's just kind of astonishing. And if they get to the deadline and they need pitching, which would not surprise any of us, right? Man, they've got the ability to go get anybody they want with these players that they have both on the roster and in the system. And the way Grayson Rodriguez pitched last night and the promise that he has, you combine him with Burnes and Bradish is coming back, then you go get one more. It could be a pretty fearsome looking group.
Yeah, agreed. And, I know there's been a lot of tanking in our game over the past 10, 15 years. They've got to win titles, at least one or two. But if they do, this could be one of the better, tank rebuilds that we've seen.
Well, the Astros were the model for that, right, Scott?
Yeah.
The Astros did it the best. And not every team that tanked has had that kind of success. People seem to forget that. And I will point out, too, that with the draft lottery, you can't pull the stunts that the Orioles and Astros pulled. And they were actually going for a very much desired result. So that's healthy for the game. That's a good thing that this is no longer allowed in the same way. But we have to understand this is how these teams got there. But even with all those picks, you still have to go get the right guys. And yeah, I know they drafted 1-1 with Adley Rutschman and with Jackson Holliday, but Gunnar Henderson was a second rounder. Looks like he's going to be one of the best players in the game. And not one of these guys was 1-1. Kudos to them, man. They've done it great.
Yeah, I know we talk about the White Sox a lot on this show. If you look at some of their recent first-round picks, they have not hit on them. It's been guys that either don't make it or they've just been okay in the bigs, backup players, whatever it is. And then you look at Baltimore. So, yeah, it's a thing. You got to nail it. Ken, have fun. Good luck. I am excited to watch this one this weekend and see the back and forth with AJ. I know he's been talking about it for 2 weeks. So enjoy the series.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Ken Rosenthal, FT Senior Insider, twice a week, Fair Territory. Next one comes out on Monday. Yesterday's is great. Check that out after this on YouTube or wherever you get your pods. Just type in Fair Territory. It's there for you. Todd Father, good to see you. You're back, baby.
You said you have to nail it. I kind of made me smile. I don't know. That's all you. It's going to be on the next blooper reel. So I'm just letting you know.
Oh, it will definitely be on Out of Context.
I'm just I just wanted to point that out. You have to nail it, he wrote. So
it's going to go like this. Check your junk. You have to nail it. Something like that.
I just got a weird feeling.
We know Frankie behind the scenes crushes that. Okay, let's get to the Mets and Braves. So at the top of the show, I said Mets, Royals. Big series this weekend, and obviously a little tongue-in-cheek, but also they're two teams playing good ball. Any surprise here that the Mets really took it to the Braves, especially in yesterday's game? Holy shit, 16-4. I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on Max Fried tonight because he's really looked bad in his first couple outings. So with the Spencer Strider injury and probably news this weekend, in my mind, that's not going to be good. Are we getting a little bit of nerves about what the Braves could look like from a pitching standpoint, Kratz? And did some people trash the Mets too early? If you watched this show, we said, I would say as a consensus, offense is going to be fine. And I've been texting my friends because I have a lot of Mets fans as friends and family growing up. I'm like, offense will be fine. I'm still worried about pitching depth over the course of the season.
You're worried about the pitching depth because of the expectations of this team, not because, they'll just be fine. Like, this is a World Series expectation team. And without Strider, the depth isn't there. You call a guy up from AAA who the Braves have for years constantly produced pitching. And they constantly bring guys up that can pitch at the big league level. You know what they need? They need guys to play behind them. And there was plenty of plays yesterday by the Braves that is uncharacteristic of them. Are they the greatest defensive team? Are they like the Cardinals of 2022? Or are they like the Rangers getting 3 Gold Gloves last year? No, they're not that great. But yesterday, they did not help the kid that they called up who has big league time, who is a big league pitcher. He just has a really deep big league staff ahead of him. They did not help him. And when they do not help him, you give big league teams extra outs, it does not work out well. And this is what the Mets can do. The Mets can bang. I know some guys are like, well, whatever. The Mets don't even have JD Martinez yet. So when they do, they're going to be a problem in the East. Not a problem in the same sense that the Braves and the Phillies are a problem, but they're going to be a problem because they're not going to let the Zach Wheeler, the Ranger Suarez, the Aaron Nola, the Jesus Luzardo, the Mackenzie Gore. They're not going to let them. This lineup's not going to let them off the hook as easily as, you would say maybe some of the Marlins lineup or some of the Nats lineup is going to let these pitchers in the East off the hook.
I think, honestly, I think you're spot on right there. My point before, I lost train of thought, but my first thing I was going to say, you're facing some of the best baseball players in the world. Teams are good, but guess what? They can get beat. This is why it's the greatest sport. You don't know what type of game you're going to get. You don't know what type of team you're going to get. They could be the best team, and they play the worst team wins. And people are like, oh, how did that happen? Well, you're playing against professionals, dude. This is why this game is so much fun. So the Mets coming out, kind of rocky beginning. Lindor struggling a little bit. The pitching not there. Next thing you know, they put up a 16 spot. I mean, boom. We know any team is capable of doing that. But at the same time, you got to be able to maintain that. And I think that's where the tough part is when seeing not only the Mets, but other teams as well, not maintaining what they should be doing. And that's where I think they'll be all right, like Scott said earlier when we were talking about the Mets.
The Braves are good. The Braves are really good. They have an all-star in AAA and Bryce Elder. Their pitching staff will be fine. Their bullpen got banged around a little bit this series with Iglesias. And Minter, I think, gave up a home run to Nimmo. Like, they're really good. This is a day game after a night game. I wonder if they'll start questioning it. They start seeing like a 500 record in day games after a night game. This whole lineup plays every single day. If they'll start giving those guys time off, thinking, hey, we're going to be super fresh for the playoffs when we get our 3 to 5 days off before we play our first round game.
Yeah, when the Cubs won, they were cruising, and that final month almost didn't matter. And I remember some players were pissed about it. They were like, yo, don't sit me too much. It worked out for them. Mm-hmm. Worked out quite well for them. They were fresh and ready for that. And actually, in subsequent years, barely, but they won. Like, you won. You made it. You won the marathon. In subsequent years, there were times I remember, because I covered them sometimes, from a media perspective, they were like, we're gassed. We're gassed physically. We're gassed even to talk after games. I'm telling you, it was a real thing. So
it's a real thing.
When you're consistently making the playoffs every year and the spotlight's on you, it's a lot more than when you're not good. And like, in my mind, the reason I brought this up is I agree. Kratz, Braves are a juggernaut. I think they're going to win the division still. When you're thinking about the playoffs, if Strider's not a part of this mix this year, what's your 1, 2, 3, and even maybe 4 in a playoff rotation? They might be pretty aggressive at the trade deadline to find a guy.
I want to see
because I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable like we've talked about Dodgers, Phillies, etc. Right now, the guys that they would have in that scenario versus what the Braves have, I'd be a little bit concerned. I need to see Fried and give that some time. All good. I think he'll figure it out as long as he's healthy, as long as there's not an issue underlying. Morton is 40 million years old, still good, but he was hurt for that first series last year?
Right? Yeah, he would have been back for the DS.
He would have been back for the next one, but he was hurt in the DS, so he didn't pitch.
He was hurt in the DS. He would have been back for the CS, I think, or was that the year before?
I think it was last year. And Ronaldo Lopez is not going 200 innings this year and then pitching in the playoffs. Like, I'm just saying, when you start to look at the rotation, I'm thinking playoffs because we know they're going to make it. That's all. That's why I bring it up. And the Mets are not going to lose 100 games, but I also don't think they're going to make the playoffs. So I think they are who we thought they were when we talked about them in the offseason. They're not the Marlins, but I don't see them making
I want
the
to see
playoffs.
the Braves.
I like their offense, though.
Everybody looked at the Braves extensions and they're like, whoa, Alex Anthopoulos does stuff. Don't forget about what Alex Anthopoulos did early in his career, too, with the Blue Jays. He made some trades. They didn't work out. He made other trades, and he pushed that team to really close to making the World Series if they don't have a few defensive blunders against – what team was that won the World Series in 15? Oh, Kansas City Royals. That's right.
Oh, humble brag. How you doing?
Had to get it in there. All right, ready? Let's go over some weekend games here. There are a few games that are free in the BetMGM app. The Game of the Day streams on the app, and it's available to all BetMGM customers who are logged in and have funded accounts. Here's the weekend slate that they have full free in the app. Giants, Rays, Cubs, Mariners, and Angels, Red Sox. I think Cubs, Mariners is an interesting series for me. I'm just still trying to figure out both of them. They're both going to contend for a playoff spot, but I thought the Cubs were a little short this offseason. We've talked a lot about the Mariners. I think what we're seeing with them play out is kind of true. A few guys that are off to slow starts that should be fine. Pitching's going to be nails. They've had some concerns though. Like Luis Castillo didn't look good, but I'm like, I think he'll figure it out. Guys like that. I just am concerned about lineup depth with the Mariners. It's not a lineup that's going to bang its way to a World Series title in my mind.
Fair. I don't disagree.
Okay.
Agree.
Anything else from those games and those teams?
Oh, that pitching
What?
staff is awesome. I got one of those teams.
Oh, you got one in your picks.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to it. So Thursday worked out a little bit better. Kratz and me nailed it.
Come on,
the
Luce.
same game. I know. Lucy's debut in 2024. Tyler O'Neill with a rare miss so far. Tyler's been great. And then AJ's bet got voided because Devers is hurt-ish.
I thought that was going to come so close because if you were watching the game, Reese McGuire got thrown out of the game like it was like a short fuse where Alex Cora was running and he's like, I got thrown out. No, now we have our catcher playing second base. So they had, and I was like, they're going to put Devers in the game and he's going to play one defensive inning, get no at-bats, and it's going to AJ.
I thought they were going to put Kenley Jansen behind the plate. That would have been sick.
That would have been sick. It's been a few years. I actually played against him behind the dish.
So did I. Unbelievable. He had a cannon, by the way.
He only ever threw from his knees. It was on the backfield. Yeah. It was on the backfield in spring training.
Yeah. I mean, he's a monster. He's huge.
The equipment didn't fit him. It was when he was playing for Curacao. And the equipment didn't fit him. The chest protector was up above his belly button. It was hilarious. But anyway.
And Reese McGuire was pissed. I think somewhat rightfully so. They got squeezed on. No?
It was a strike.
No, not his at-bat. Not his at-bat.
No, that was a strike.
It's because he's like, yo, we're not getting – it was taking some frustration out, trying to back the pitchers. There was a little bit of that going on.
Sure.
There was one pitch. What was it? Was it the inning with –
It was ball four to Holiday. It was – no.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you're
bottom
right.
Of the zone.
Ball four to Holiday. It was a full count, and they botched it. It missed. It caught plate. Yeah. Well, and it was. I think he said it was low, and it was like, nah, it wasn't low. It caught where it needed to catch. Anyway, Papnosticator, your pick for Friday?
Whew, what's up, my people of that team? Hey, I had to get a sauna today, sweat out the bad juju that I've been happening, man. I know we lost a few games. Hey, but guess what? We still up $560-something. So I had to get in the sauna this morning and just sweat it out and try to figure out what my picks were today. And I finally got them for you. Today's a 5-star lock. Okay, it's a 5-star lock. I normally don't give those out very often, but today we're going with the Braves and the Blue Jays, okay? We're going to take both of them in the money line, and we're going to build a parlay with them. And so that's going to make us at plus 113. We're going to bet $300. And hopefully that gets us back over $1,000. And we're going to go into the weekend. We're going to ball out, baby.
Pap is like a pit bull that your uncle has a pit bull and you go over to his house and you're always just kind of looking at it like,
oh boy,
is this thing hungry? Did you feed it? So we just got to make sure we keep feeding Pap, okay?
Yeah.
But exactly. I do like his pick.
I like his pick too, but I just love the creativity that is going into Pap appearing on the show every other day.
He was at Chuck E. Cheese the other day, Todd. I don't know if you were here when he was at Chuck E. Cheese.
I heard about it.
You can't miss it. It's just incredible. So thank you, Pap. Who wants to try and follow that? Actually, you got one of his games, right?
Yes, I do. I'm going to go Toronto. He picked Toronto money line. I'm going Toronto minus a run and a half at minus 120. We'll try and go back to 360 to win 300. I think Guzman comes out and has a stellar performance, unlike what he did last one. What?
Gossman or Guzman?
Oh, excuse man, it's Guzman. You're that asshole in class all the time. That's like the 5th time you've done that. I'm gonna let that one slip though because it was funny.
Don't let it slip. Do something about it.
It just slipped. It went away.
Don't
think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, nerd. That's the Friday Kratz Todd father relationship I'm looking for. I'll go Dodgers run line to take down the Padres later. I'll keep it nice and tidy. I think Dodgers are going to play up for this one at home against San Diego. I think they'll add talent them. Yamamoto's back on the mound to redeem himself against the Padres. Mm-hmm. Remember, they were in Korea, and I think he was flat out nervous. Command wasn't there. Dude's comfy now. Think he's going to shove. Dodgers in a better place with the bullpen and just a better lineup. So I think there's a lot of reasons why I like the early season run lines. This is one for me. With the Dodgers, I could see this being a blowout, honestly, for game one. So I'll go plus a hundo and my usual, just for the people. It's 100 to win 100.
You're trying to get the people to maybe buy it up to a little minus 2.5. I hear what you're saying there, Scotty.
I actually might. I might.
Mike King's no joke now. Watch out.
Ooh-wee, Mike King might be punching out some sides. Anyway, the last victim for the Dodgers that was punching out sides was Jordan Wicks. Now it was a day game, but he punched out 7 Dodgers. The time before that, he punched out 6 of the reigning World Series champions, the Rangers. So I'm going Jordan Wicks, going to be punching out 5.5 plus. So he's going to get 6 Ks at plus 125. And he's facing the Mariners.
Half or half?
Out, and he is 5.5. So we just got to get 6.
Half. It's not half. It's half.
Half.
That's that
but
Philly
I'm putting
talk.
100 down to win 125 for the people and start the weekend off right. I'll get you that parlay for the boys too.
There you go. Okay, so the Grand Slam jackpot promotion is on, and it's a weekly bet and get promo. So you place a $10 or more wager on any player to hit a home run for a weekend game. So you could do this on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. If the player hits a Grand Slam home run, then you win a $50,000 daily prize or a share of that prize if anyone else placed. So basically what I'm trying to say is if you do home run prop picks, like if you pick a dude to hit a homer in a betting app, it should be here because you get a bonus if the dude hits a Grand Slam. Like it's very simple. So let's do home run picks. You could pick a day and a player where you think it could be a homer or even a Grand Slam to get a little bigger piece of the slice.
Yeah, I'll start it off. I'm going with Polar Bear. Saturday, he's facing Alec Marsh. Granny coming, boys and girls. Polar Bear pistol, Pete Alonso.
There you go. I'll go tonight's game, Kratz. I got Adam Duvall, as long as he's in the lineup, going up against the lefty and Trevor Rogers. Rogers hasn't looked good. I think the Braves are pissed coming off that L. So I'm like, how do I line up a Grand Slam? Duvall's always clutch. If the bags are full, I could see it happening. He's not getting everyday playing time on this team unless someone goes down. He's looked good so far against lefty. Doesn't have a homer yet. So I'm going to hit this one. What do you got?
Wait, did you say Sunday, Pete Alonso? Is that what you said, Todd? I just want to make sure I tell you. Saturday, Pete Alonso? Okay. All right. I'm going Austin Riley tonight to go take Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood deep for a granny. All right, so I looked at Duvall, and actually, I like your pick, Scotty, because Duvall is actually coming off at better numbers. I think Austin Riley was giving me plus 500 for a homer, and Duvall was plus 425. So I like yours, but I'm going Austin Riley because he's bringing the boys a little granny tonight.
There you go. Yeah, I think the Braves are gonna bring it tonight against the Marlins. Tough times for the Marlins. We talked about this.
Might go run line there instead of the money line, but
yeah, we talked about this with the Marlins. Like sometimes you don't buy the hot start or the slow start. The problem I had with the Marlins was their schedule rough, and then you suddenly look up and you're like, "Fuck, we're 4-20." You know, it's it's just not good. They're going through the gauntlet coming off the awful start.
They are.
It's tough. All right, let's slap. Kratz hats, bring it.
The Wisconsin Timber Rattlers are now the Utter Huggers.
I like the brim.
The utter tuggers. Are you kidding me? The utter tuggers. Like this is a real hat. This is a real hat. The brim looking like a cow. I mean,
I give that one a B+ because of the brim.
Okay.
I like it.
And you know I'm pretty strict.
You are strict.
I do like 1 A every week or two, but that's an A.
This is your second A.
Yeah, it's fun. The kids would like it, right? Like they bring niece and nephew to a game, and I'm like, look, they have a cow on their hat, and look at the brim. They would love it. They nailed it. Tweet this out and let them know they nailed it. Okay.
Yep.
I want them to know that was awesome. It's an A for me.
Yeah.
That's it, folks. We had a week. FT merch available anytime. FoulTerritoryShop.com. Lots of Ippei content from the week. Thanks, Corbin Burnes. That was a great chat. I thought Zack Scott was great too. Ken's always a superstar.
Agreed.
Another guest host joining us Monday. AJ Ramos did a great job recently. Cameron Maben joining us on Monday. Monday is Jackie Robinson Day as well. We'll have some good guests. So we'll see everyone then. Todd Father, we will see you at some point next week, dude. Oh, see you in Cincinnati.
Cincy. Tuesday. Let's go.
Safe travels.
Get you some chili.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That'll go right through me and you.